Good morning, viewers, again, and welcome back. Thank you for joining us again on GMT Good Morning Tobago. This morning, I have the privilege of speaking to the leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party, Mr. Phillip Edward Alexander, and I just want to welcome him this morning. Good morning, sir. He's joining us virtually from Trinidad this morning.
Good morning. I hope you're hearing me well. Thank you for having me. Good morning to your viewers. Good morning to all the beautiful people of Tobago.
And just before we get into our subject matter at hand, Mr. Alexander, I just want to get, for viewers as well, tell us a little about the Progressive Empowerment Party.
It continues to be the third largest political party in the country. We have more plans, policies, governance ideas than any other party. In fact, the two major parties have been pilfering and copying and pasting, trying to make use of policies that we've put into the public space. I'm releasing a book shortly called Reinventing Trinidad and Tobago, a common sense guide to the redevelopment of the Republic. And it will be as close to free as possible, so every single Trinidadian and Tobagonian will at least have a sensible idea and an argument to the nonsense that's being parroted as governance to us these days.
Right, and tell us a little about maybe your goals as political leader of the PEP.
The only goal for being in a political party is to win an election and govern a country sensibly. The Progressive Empowerment Party is the only political party that was launched with a manifesto. Unlike others who have to convene groups and discuss, we've been doing that for quite some time, long before the party was formed, actually. The ideas behind the Progressive Empowerment Party are to level the playing field so that everybody from the very bottom to the very top have the same accesses to the same opportunities, financial and otherwise, in Trinidad and Tobago.
And you have publicly thrown support to the UNC. Tell us a little about the dynamics of having your political party support another, because you just mentioned the reason for being in politics and being a political party is to win an election. So tell us a little about the dynamics or your thoughts behind throwing support to the UNC.
Unlike Tobago, which is fortunate that in a way it doesn't have to fight the race politics that Trinidad fights because it is more unicultural, for want of a better term. Trinidad is race-based politics. Every time you launch a political party, media hosts on media shows in Trinidad ask you who's your base, because Afros vote PNM and Indos vote UNC, so who are you going to vote for? So the Progressive Empowerment Party worked hard from January 18, 2017 to demonstrate to the people of Trinidad and Tobago that change is a possibility. And we ended up with a whole slogan, Phillip will fix it, because we were on the ground doing things that the government nor the opposition would or could do. We shown that there is a reality. And then in 2020, voter apathy and race voting showed us that Trinidad not ready to save itself. You and I don't have enough time this morning to talk about why Tobago should be the number one tourist destination on the planet, head and shoulders above everybody else. And the only reason it is not is artificial, so that elites, 1%, lodge members, secret society people that run Trinidad and Tobago could grab up Tobago land at cheap cost to themselves. Trinidad is the same thing. Throwing my support behind the UNC was not an easy decision to make. But the PNM has been in office 2 terms now, and they're threatening us with enslavement. A cashless society is enslavement. The government has no clue how to run the country. Oil and gas has stopped being the principal drivers of our economy, and taxation has been driving this economy for the past 9 years. The government has run out of ways to creatively tax and spend to pay the people in the alphabet soup of make work programs and handouts that they have for their supporters to keep buying those 340,000 votes. And the rest of Trinidad and Tobago sits down with their hands in their laps wondering how to fix it. And I'm here to tell them again that voting is the way out. I gave the UNC my support simply to prize this PNM out of office. I don't have as much hope in the UNC as I would in the Progressive Empowerment Party to actually do the job of fixing Trinidad and Tobago the way it should be done. But we need to get this PNM out if we want to at least derail the tax and spend, the merit system, the failure to secure the nation that has the 40,000 guns in the country that's now terrorizing Tobago. Tobago has now gotten to a place where Trinidad has been for years. And to end this notion of a cashless society. I see in the papers again this madman of a minister of finance talking cashless again. I want to ring the alarm for Trinidadians. There are 500,000 homeowners in Trinidad and Tobago. There are a million vehicle owners in Trinidad and Tobago. Keith Rowley said he has the votes to unilaterally remove the 3 ships from the coat of arms. I want to let him know he doesn't have those votes. That if the people of Trinidad and
Before
Tobago
you
got
continue, and I want us now, as you brought it up, because you are here to talk about that issue. So just to give our viewers a context, we all know that the Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley would have announced at a special convention for the PNM the plan to remove the 3 ships on the coat of arms and replace it with a Steelpan. And of course, you would have been very vocal and shared your thoughts publicly on that matter. Why did you seem so upset or disturbed
opposed,
by the plan,
opposed. The word is
opposed to that
opposed.
plan?
Opposed. Well, I'll tell you, there are multiple ways that you can approach this. One, we don't need a coat of arms anymore. A coat of arms is like a carnival band getting your section banner. When Trinidad was part of people's empires, that coat of arms was to tell us where our section was in the empire. Nobody's empire anymore. The United States of America rubbished their coat of arms when they became independent in 1776, and they launched what they call the Great Seal of America, which is what people are accustomed to see in the circle with the eagle in the center, holding the arrows and the corn on the wheat. We could do things like that, but not now. Not now when the country has been deliberately run into the ground to enslave the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This is a total despicable planned act to take control of what should be the best country in the world. Trinidad and Tobago should be living the life that the Guyanese live in now, and not just oil. We have the best country on the planet for so many reasons, and we should have taken advantage of that. For the 62 years that we've been independent, we've not.
So,
What
Mr.
what has
Alexander,
happened?
you mentioned that we should not have a coat of arms, at least in this point in our history, and you explained why. But we do have one. And moving forward with that, and you mentioned you are opposed to replacing the ships with the steel pan. Can you explain to our viewers what's the issue with replacing that image or updating it where the steel pan will now take the
The,
place of the 3 ships?
the logistical nightmare, the massive inconvenience it is going to cause. You sitting there have to go and change your birth certificate, your passport, your driver's permit, your ID card to start. They're going to have to redo all the currencies. They're going to have to change every document. It will grind every ministry to a halt trying to change their own documents while trying to accede to requests for documents. People have the average person. Imagine a million people lining up outside licensing office. They give a 6-month deadline. This is madness. This is lunacy. Now, there are some people who say that they could do it where when your stuff expires, you have to pass a whole law to say Trinidad now has 2 coat of arms, one with the ships and one with a steel band, because you're going to now accept 2 coats of arms. But I want to tell you again, we don't even need a coat of arms. It might be cheaper to abolish it. It doesn't serve a purpose. It serves us nothing now. It's a holdover to the monarchy and colonial days, and we don't need it. And every historian will tell you that. But there's the cost, there's the inconvenience, the cost to changing that, to maintaining it, to keeping it, and changing something on it while trying to use it will cost this country hundreds of millions of dollars that the taxpayers are going to have to pay because the government has no revenue other than taxes. So they're going to have to either A, redirect taxes, which I doubt they will, or B, increase taxes by putting the cost to this change back to the taxpayers, and that is more lunacy at a time when the average person catching the tail to keep their head above water. We have a country where a little girl just died from a disease that shouldn't be killing anybody. Dengue shouldn't be killing anybody. But she just died because they didn't have tests for 5 days. So she died. And this country didn't grind to a halt. If we don't have a responsibility to the innocents and the children, what's the point of all the politics? It's a farce, it's a joke. We've become tools to the 1%. And my only role in the politics is to keep pointing out to Trinidadians and Tobagonians that they have all the power. Now the government is trying to take away your power. When they control your financial value, they own you. This is slavery. This is putting a value to you that they could arbitrarily withhold. That current could go and you can't put your bank card to a machine to buy milk for your child.
So, Mr.
This is
Alexander,
lunacy.
you mentioned the issue of this whole process being a logistical nightmare. But aren't we as a citizen accustomed to these types of changes? For example, if a new government gets into power, letterheads are changed. Sometimes there are changes to the names of ministries, and the entire process in terms of stationery, signs, on buildings, on vehicles have to be changed. So are we not used to things like this? When our birth papers were updated, at some point we all have to get the polymer certificate for those who have the new driver's license. Some are still with the old one, but when that time comes to renew, you get the new one. Aren't we not accustomed to these changes?
You just mentioned things, some that took 10 years, some that took 20 years. You just compared changing signs on ministries' offices and members of parliament office, 41 signs. You just compared that to 1 million people having every document of value in their possession being nullified. There's no comparison. The closest comparison is the chaos of everybody lining up to change the $100 bill. That's the closest chaos. Now multiply that by 50, multiply that by 100, because this deadline will make your driver's permit illegal if the police pull you over. Because I didn't hear him say anything about 2 coats of arms. I didn't hear him say that I could show my ID card with my old coat of arms while other people showing their new EDC issued ID card with new coat of arms, and that everything will be accepted. Because then Trinidad will need 2 coats of arms. The lunacy and the stupidity of the announcement. I know it was an election dog whistle. And I know he was speaking from the seat of his pants. And he's talking about he have the votes. Yes, he may have those votes now, but it is not enough votes.
So the comparison I was making is in terms of the process of changing stationery. The process of changing stationery, because I've heard many persons in the public space, of course, refer to the logistics as you would have mentioned. But I am thinking we are used to the process of stationery being changed. Yes, this may be of a different magnitude because we're talking about the coat of arms. So it's not 1 or 2 ministries, but we have to look at the entire system. When the Prime Minister made the announcement,
In 41 members of parliament and 1.4 million citizens. Because every parent will have to go and get updated birth certificates for every child they have. Is every single document that requires this coat of arms on it going to have to change? This is not just 41 letterheads. You have to put this in context. Just to change everybody's birth certificate in this country took a 20-year exercise. We talk about the polymer, but we forget that the polymer started changing since 1993. This is a crazy, crazy concept. You will have to now rubbish everybody's passport. It's the front page of the passport, it's the coat of arms. So now every single passport, you want to send everybody. Have you ever driven past immigration on a morning to see what normal business is in immigration? Normal renewals of passports? Imagine sending 1 million people there.
right, and
That's what
I
we're
have to
talking.
interrupt you, Mr. Alexander, just for the fact that we need to take a quick break. Viewers, we will return and continue our conversation with Mr. Alexander, so stay tuned.
To a brand new dawn and as the passion starts.
Welcome back, viewers, and thank you for staying with us. If you are just joining us, we are having a conversation with the leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party, Mr. Phillip Edward Alexander, and we are speaking about the Prime Minister's announcement to have that change made to our coat of arms, where the three ships will be removed and replaced by the Steelpan. Mr. Alexander, I just want to continue following up again. You mentioned, the whole logistical nightmare. You mentioned that even at this point in our history, we should do away with the coat of arms. If it is that suggestion is taken up, let's say, somewhere in the near future, will that also not be a logistic nightmare because we still have to replace or remove the coat of arms from our existence, so to speak?
Any government with sense would have announced a system to transition. He didn't say that. He said, with his normal hubris, we have the votes, we change it in 6 months. That's nonsense. You're not changing anything in 6 months. But you could pass a law transitioning after consultation with every creed and race, every religion, every special interest, every civil society, and every single owner of this country, every tax-paying citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Give everybody their input, tabulate the results, give it out there to the artists to create something that better represents the plural society of Trinidad and Tobago. Come back, vote on that. That process we're talking about there is years by itself. But you
Right.
get to a thing where everybody feels included.
Right.
Then you pass a law saying over the next 10 years, we will transition. So the documents with a coat of arms will be accepted. When it is time to change it, if something expires, like an ID card, a driver's permit, a passport, when it expires, you will get the new one with the seal of Trinidad and Tobago. That makes sense. That's a common sense approach to this.
Mhm.
But to dog whistle the country and talk about move off the white man that come and invade the country and put his steel pan because of indigenous stuff. He was dog whistling. That's all he was doing. He didn't expect this pushback. But you know what I want to say to Trinidad and Tobago? Let him have it. Let him grind the country to halt. I really want to see what the brain trust of the PNM is capable of doing with this. So I'm going to withdraw my opposition because I want to mobilize this country against the demerit system, against the property tax, and
Right.
against the way the economy is run. I want him to bog his government down and every office of state fighting up with this stupid lunatic idea. Let them do it. Go ahead, change it.
Right. And in terms of because you mentioned the process, so the announcement was made at a PNM special convention, and we were told 6 months transition. But do you not think that that was just a general statement, and we, the public, will hopefully get details in terms of that transition, that rollout plan for that 6 months?
You could make a general statement. I could make a general statement. It doesn't impact upon the operation of the country. He is the prime minister. When he sends a message like that, that message is to be taken seriously. People are supposed to take that message as an indication of where we're going forward on this matter. But I want to ask you a question. Something as serious as changing part of the national identity, you will announce it at a PNM convention. You are the prime minister of the PNM. Trinidadians should take that as an insult, as a slap in Trinidadians and Tobagonians should take that as a slap in the face, as an insult. You're the Prime Minister of 350,000 PNM people. The rest of us, the 1,150,000 of us, we are going to get together and push you out. That is where we should go now. He's the Prime Minister of the PNM. We need a Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago.
And I think that's what a lot of us are missing, because what stands out is really, I think, the process in which this announcement was made. And as you rightfully said, It wasn't done at a media briefing or anything, but at a PNM convention. And we were told that, hey, we have enough votes, so this is already carried. I'm just letting you know we're making these changes. Now, aside of that, because we can talk about the way in which it was done, and that in itself may be questionable, but I have also seen people have issue with the change. Do you think that the three ships should be removed?
There's this whole agenda, and I think we're copying what we're seeing taking place in other parts of the world, where people are trying to erase history. History is not something that's supposed to make you feel comfortable. History is something that's supposed to remind you that we have come from a long line of abuse, of murder, of advantage. I mean, if you and I start to talk about there are royal families in the world that whose fortunes are built on invasion and theft and looting. So we know that this occurred in the past, and we should teach the children in school that this, what Christopher Columbus did, he didn't discover us. Trinidad and Tobago were islands in the sea. There were people living here, indigenous people were living here. And what they did was they came here and they seized it for their king, and they slaughtered and enslaved people. History needs to remember that. There are other ways to celebrate Pan. Build a proper Pan University. Akron, Ohio is making profit manufacturing and exporting the steel pan. They
Right,
rename the junior pan, the jumby pan. They teach little children all over the world to play pan. China,
right,
we not in nothing to pan. Japan know more about pan than us.
right.
Aruba, Curacao, real tourist destinations know more. You think sticking the pan on the coat of arms, doing anything for pan? That was a dog whistle. There was nothing sensible about that plan. Let him have it.
Mhm. And do you think that, because you mentioned as well that consultation, I'll ask you because I'm not aware, was any consultation out there in terms of making this change?
Consultation is a joke in Trinidad and Tobago. The Constitutional Reform Assembly, those people who are out there chatting. We did this exercise before with Prakash Ramadan leading it under the People's Partnership. Now this fellow, former Speaker of the House, Barnes, as he named Senanan, Buranja Senanan, they doing the same exercise again. We spend $500 million to do investigations into transportation, and then we throw it away. We don't have, governments don't have to care. It's not their money, it's taxpayers, and taxpayers keep accepting that as long as the color of my skin match the color of the skin in office, they can do me what they want. But that is foolishness, and it is time that we understood that despite the differences in our skin color, our hair texture, we are all Trinidadians and Tobagonians. And the day we say, you know what, black, white, red, green, and every shade in between, if we stand together and we start demanding from office holders proper governance, because that's what we want from them. We don't want identity politics. I don't care about your hairstyle or what clothes you're wearing. I want to know how you're leveling the playing field so that the education system works for all. I want to
Right.
know that nobody's going to a hospital that we're spending $5 billion a year on and dying from dengue. That's what I want. I want a country where the average person, red, white, black, green, and every shade in between, could go into the bank for a bank loan and get the same system that a man who announced that he built a restaurant every month for 10 years, name 120 restaurants. And all I wanted to know is where you get the money from. Because the average person cannot go in the bank and get money to do one restaurant, much less 120. I want to level that play field. That is why I am in politics. That's the only purpose for anybody being in politics, to make sure that every single Trinidadian, the very old, the very young, and everybody in between are properly represented and served. And if we don't wake up to that as a people, and if we don't make that as our identity agenda, this country is going to die. It is going to fail. We have to face the responsibility for that. We keep putting people in office and they are destroying our futures. That has to change.
Right. And if it is, you were given the opportunity to let's say, spearhead this a committee that had to deal with this issue, what would you put in place for us, the citizens, to have to deal with this whole change?
A change in the coat of arms.
Yes, because
He put
you
the
mentioned how it was done. The announcement was made within the remits or the audience of a political party. An announcement was given just 6 months, and yet we know the coat of arms exists on all our official documents, as you even mentioned, our passport.
But that's the point. When he was being the prime minister of the PNM and he have the votes, that's he could be changing all the PNM documents. But that's a slap in the face to everybody else in the country by saying we have the votes, we don't have to consult you. You're a madman. The
Right.
1 million vehicles in this country have more votes than the PNM. If they stand up and unite, PNM done. The 500,000 homeowners in this country have more votes than the PNM. And the
Right.
350,000 handout voters. We could, if we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, stood together, that we have the votes nonsense would be rubbish.
Right.
But if you ask me, if you ask me to handle something
Yes.
like how do we transition from the coat of arms, first of all, I will tell you there are many reasons not to do it. And the
Right.
first and the most important is erasing history never helps. Those who do not learn from history are condemned to relive it over and over and over again.
Right.
So we need reminders that the Europeans enslaved the Africans, and that before that the Africans enslaved the Jews, and before that the Jews enslaved, and that is history. We need to keep reminding ourselves that what happened to the Jews during the Holocaust was disgusting to watch. And I was actually watching a show called The Piano on TV in the 80s. And I was watching a show on a videotape called The Piano. And it was so horrible to watch what was being done to the Jews that I just stopped the tape from playing. And when I stopped the tape from playing, it went to CNN that was showing those same descendants of those same Jews doing the same thing to the Palestinians. And I'm thinking, if we don't engrave history in front of our faces to remind us that
Right.
this is what people have done in the past, people will do it again in the future. We need
Mm-hmm.
all of the. Now, I'm a believer, I'm a romantic, I'm a believer in a global village of happy people and everybody sharing all the resources in the world. I believe in those things.
Right.
And I would those things for the rest of my life. I'm in Trinidad. So my father told me when I was growing up, bloom where you're planted. There are enough resources in Trinidad and Tobago for every Trinidadian to be wealthy, happy, healthy, peaceful, safe. But we let a handful of people loot it and steal all our money. And you come to tell me that the solution to the problems is to change the coat of arms? The money that that's
Right.
going to cost, I spend it securing the nation's borders so we have 40,000 legal guns. If you ask me if they gave me the job to transition the coat of arms, what I do, I'd give them the job back. There's no benefit to Trinidad and Tobago. I would create another way, a bigger, better way to celebrate the pan while keeping our eye on our history. Trinidadians should know why we have a Sangre Grande and a Sangre Chiquito and how this nation was built on big blood and small blood. We don't have that being taught in schools. We should, because our people should know. Our people should know that the United States of America was great nations before it was a United States of America, and blankets riddled with smallpox was used to decimate natives. Things like that happened in Trinidad. We should be having these conversations, and erasing history. Taking down Columbus statue does nothing to protect the people of the future. Nobody in Trinidad goes to Columbus statue and treats him like a great guy. Nobody venerates him. What
Right.
he represents is a time in our history when the world was, if you see it and you like it, you could take it and seize it, and if there are people there, you could kill them or you could enslave them and build empires, and then 400 years from now, the rest of the world will pretend these are royal families. That's history.
Right.
Let's keep our history in front of our face. So the next 500 years, we develop sensibly and we keep everybody's safety and well-being as paramount in everything that we do.
Right, and I must thank you for sharing your views with us, Mr. Alexander, this morning. And it was quite an interesting conversation. And of course, we wish you and the rest of your political party, as you continue to fight for Trinidad and Tobago, all the best. So thank you again for sharing your views with us this morning.
I'd like to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. You're a very gracious hostess. And people of Tobago, I just want to say, I want you to remember something. Of the island nation state that is Trinidad and Tobago, you are the jewel. Tobago is the best single island in the world. And never stop fighting for that. Have a great day.
You too, sir. Thank you so much. Viewers, we go to a quick break, and when we return, we'll have another guest in studio with us this morning. So stay tuned.